Having a child can be such a fulfilling experience, and the relationship between a parent and child is so special and unique. It can be really comforting to have someone who will love you unconditionally no matter what, especially if you had a tough time in the past. But even though your children will always be on your side, it's important to give them space to grow and be their own person. In this video, we talk about finding the right balance between loving our children and keeping them safe. Our words and actions can have a big impact on our kids. So as a parent, finding the right balance between openness and setting boundaries can be a challenge. It's okay to show our children that we are not perfect and have emotions, but it's also important to take care of our own mental health and not rely on them to support us. It is natural for children to perceive their parents as a powerful and authoritative figures. This can be further reinforced by the fact that parents are responsible for providing for their children's physical and emotional needs. When a parent appears to be struggling or in need of help, it can activate a child's survival instincts and cause them to want to save their parent. This can involve a child assuming responsibility for the situation, which can have negative consequences on his or her emotional well-being. Many parents may mistakenly view their child as a substitute for a therapist. After a long day at work, you may feel like you just need to vent and unload all of your stress and worries on someone, and your child may seem like the easiest and most convenient person to turn to. But it's important to remember that your children are not equipped to handle the role of a therapist. While we all want to have a strong connection with our children, it's necessary to bear in mind that they can't handle adult problems like we do. If we involve them to grown-up conversations, they may feel the pressure to take on adult responsibilities and make adult decisions. This can prevent them from focusing on their own growth and inner world. They are still developing their own emotional regulation and coping skills, and they are not equipped to provide support to someone else. When you start to rely on your child for emotional support, it can be overwhelming and demanding for them. I often hear people make comments like, "He should be able to do that, he is already 6 years old," or "She is a big girl, she is 9 now." But, dear parents, it's not fair to expect a child to handle adult responsibilities just because they've reached a certain age. Even a 15-year-old may not be equipped to handle all the tasks that an adult can manage. Did you know that on average the brain reaches full emotional maturity in the mid-20s to even early 30s? Many parents face difficulties in striking a balance between being a parent and being a friend in modern times. The phrase "I'm my child's best friend" is a common one among parents. A parent may be tempted to shift the balance of power with their children for a variety of reasons, such as trying to be perceived as cool or a good guy, avoiding anger or disappointment from the child, or mistaking oversharing and discussing others as a sign of closeness or intimacy. Raising a child entails a combination of authority, compassion, care, love, and most importantly, guidance. Some parents I encounter are frightened of offering suggestions that may not yield positive results. In an attempt to avoid being too harsh like their own parents, become overly friendly with their children, which is not an appropriate approach. It is essential to let go of such fears, because even if being a parent and a best friend to your child may seem like a desirable goal, it can actually be harmful. I've observed scenarios where children have been turned into confidants, advisors, or even party associates for their parents, which can lead to blurring of boundaries and unclear responsibilities. This is not an appropriate dynamic for parents to maintain. I'd like to present 3 examples. One example is of a 10-year-old girl. Her parents were constantly fighting with each other and often sought her advice on how to resolve their issues. She was caught in the middle and felt immense pressure to choose sides and mediate their arguments. Another example, a 13-year-old boy had parents who were active in local politics. He was frequently brought to political events and was expected to network and socialize with politicians and their families. This turned him into a confidant and advisor for his parents, blurring the line between his responsibilities as a child and his parents' political ambitions. A third one is a 16-year-old girl who felt uncomfortable and embarrassed due to her parents' openness about sex and relationships. They discussed explicit topics and their own experiences in front of her, blurring boundaries and putting pressure on her to be knowledgeable at a vulnerable age, causing uncertainty about her own sexual identity. Children need structure, discipline, and boundaries to develop properly. And a parent who is also their best friend may struggle to provide that. It can also create confusion for the child, who may not know when it's time to make fun and when it's time to follow rules. Additionally, it can put pressure on the child to always be entertaining or pleasing to their parent, instead of just being themselves. So it's important to be aware of this dynamic and to set appropriate boundaries. Be friendly, not a friend. As children grow up and mature, the dynamic between parent and child can evolve into a more equal and adult-to-adult relationship. This can include elements of friendship, such as shared interests, open communication, and mutual support. However, it's still important for the parent to maintain boundaries, even with grown-up children, and to recognize that their role as a parent may still include giving guidance and advice when necessary. As parents, we should have other support systems, such as a therapist, friends, or family members, with whom we can discuss and process adult problems and issues. This will help prevent placing unnecessary burdens on our children and allow them to focus on their own developmental needs. If you find that your mood is heavily impacted by your child's presence or absence, or if you feel the need of constantly communicate with them, it may be a sign of emotional dependence. Such behavior can be unattractive, as seen in relationships or friendships where one party is overly needy. Be cautious about relying on your children to fulfill your emotional needs. If you are unsure of this, consider asking your child for their perspective. It's natural to share our emotions with those among us, but it's important to be mindful of the impact it may have on the listener. I am not suggesting you suppress your emotions and pretend to be happy all the time, but it's not necessary for your child, whether they're an adult or adolescent, to be privy to every detail of your emotional life. You know, as a parent, it's important to keep in mind that kids are more perceptive than we think. Even if you don't think they are paying attention, they can still sense the emotions and dynamics in the household, especially when it comes to issues between parents. Telling our kids negative things about the other parent can seriously impact their perception and create feelings of guilt, confusion, and even trauma. They might feel like they have to take sides or assume responsibilities that are just not appropriate for their age. But when it comes to divorce, it's not a good idea to use your kids as an excuse to stay in a toxic marriage either. If your kids see you unhappy and struggling because of home situation, it will only make them feel worse because they may believe they are the cause of your pain. Our kids are constantly watching and learning from us. So it's up to us to show them how to take care of themselves and handle tough emotions in a healthy way. By practicing self-care and healthy coping strategies, we can set a great example for our children and help them build their own emotional resilience. Just remember, our precious ones aren't here to heal our past pain. Our children are not responsible for our emotional well-being either. You want to be open and honest, but not at the cost of putting too much on their plate. So it's all about finding that sweet spot and knowing when to hold back. This is what responsible parenting is all about, putting your child's needs first and creating a safe and supportive environment for them to grow. The process where children are made to assume adult responsibilities and roles, often at cost of their own developmental needs and emotional well-being, is called parentification in psychology. Check out my other video about this subject if you want to know more, and this one about a child's brain development. In the meantime, don't forget to like, share and subscribe. Thank you for watching, and I hope that this video has been helpful for you. See you next time.